Why, hello, folks. So, as I am hunting for the new ridiculous Tenet weapon, and I do think that the Tenet Plinks is going to turn out to be quite the ridiculous Tenet weapon. Okay, it's got a crappy roll or whatever, but I don't think that matters all that much. I'm gonna talk a bit about something that was said by Rebecca during the latest dev stream. I think I'm not gonna cover like the entirety of the dev stream because it was like a week ago. Lewis Prey is already out, and it was basically just about here's what's gonna come in Lewis Prey. I don't think it's very newsworthy right now. But one thing that sort of has been glossed over or hasn't been talked that much about yet is the delay, if that's what it is, to the return of self-damage.
We have spoken at length about self-damage, and we even went as far as to suggest that we are super close to bringing back self-damage, because we have these, you know, the dev build has this prototype mode, and you're not going to be able to kill yourself anymore with it, but we're going to do this. And it was going to come in Lewis Prey, but we did remove it all, because we wanted more time to make it consistent across every Warframe and weapon. It's not as easy as, you know, just bringing back self-damage and everything is going to work perfectly. The testing we did showed that there's just too many cases where either your expectation is not meeting reality with it, or it's just not being consistency. It's not being consistent, I should say. So we have rolled back the self-damage re-edition. We were going to bring it in this update. We've talked about it at length. We've shown you videos. We will continue to communicate with you about what we're planning with it and why, but we do not have a timeline for it. And with the amount of work Deviri is for us.
A bit.
Yeah, just a bit. We don't intend to release it with that update either. So it's going to be a little bit later, and we'll just keep open about it.
Yeah, we started a dev workshop, so there will still be a dev workshop when we get closer to it, but like Rep said, we will communicate with you when we have another prototype that is to more of our liking.
It's close, but it's one of those things where if we released it on Wednesday in 2 days,
hotfix
every hotfix would be fixing something with it, whereas if you played it on Wednesday, it would be a different experience than if you played it on Thursday, which is hard. It's hard enough for content creators to try and make like a succinct opinion or you know, video
Guide
about something, and it would be even harder if you were saying like, well, if you played it in 32.2 it did this, and if you played it in 32.3 it did this. So we're just going to take more time with it.
Now, I'm one of the people who has been sort of like I've been pretty consistently positive about this regime change, and the changes that they have done so far has seemed pretty sensible to me. When they introduced the call missions, it felt like an attempt at sort of like creating a more slowed down game mode, a more sort of like return to the old whatnot of Warframe, of trying to like get people to play in a somewhat depowered state, fewer enemies in the map, not as nutty powers, not as much invincibility and stuff like that. And like that's been sort of the thing about Duviri as well, right? More operator gameplay, but now like drifter stuff. Mounts, like, you know, like a horse. Yes, it's a flying horse. Yes, I understand that it's a flying horse, but it's not going at the breakneck pace of Warframe as we know it today, right? And my impression was that they were willing to go back and revisit a lot of the things that was maybe missteps by the old regime. I'm not sure if I should use the word regime, but I guess that the old heads of the dev team, right? And the idea being that, like, oh, maybe the direction the game has gone in the past couple of years haven't been, like, super the best in every regard. Maybe we should rethink some things. And specifically, this comes down to like, the overall power level of Warframes and of all our abilities and all our gear. Because if you look at the Steam charts for Warframe, I understand that they don't tell like a completely like all-telling picture or whatever. But you can learn some things from looking at team charts over like average users per day, peak users per day, stuff like that. And what you can see is that Warframe is not as popular today as it was a couple of years ago. It is markedly less popular. Fewer average users per day, lower peaks in people logged in at the same time. So you gotta start wondering, like, why is that? What is the reason why Warframe is less popular today than it used to be? And there's probably a million reasons. There's probably not just one single answer for it. Like, we have today's complaints about the so-called AoE meta, and I'm one of the people who do complain about that, and do think we should move away from that. That teamwork and group play and stuff like that, it doesn't feel as good as it used to. That's part of it. Another issue is that with all of the sort of nutty things that exist in the game today, the barrier of entry is higher. Like, in order to be able to keep up with today's players, you need to have some pretty stupid stuff. Or you'll just, you'll hang around in the background. You'll hang around in the background, but you won't actually be able to do anything in squads. And that, in combination with the fact that, like, this game doesn't have a good tutorial, it doesn't have a good way of introducing new players, means that it becomes sort of less accessible to a new player. So you have people who drop off, but then you're not recruiting new players at the same speed. Now, obviously, this could also be chalked up to the fact that, hey, this game is almost 10 years old, right? It is a live service game that has outlasted most other live service games. It's been around for a long time. You could say that, like, yeah, but can you really expect any game to be able to, like, just be popular forever? Or are people eventually going to move away from it? And there's something to that. That, like, maybe Warframe simply, like, has already peaked, and it's not gonna go back down or back up again or just have another renaissance where it's hot again. Maybe that's just not gonna happen in a game that's so old. That being said, like, I mean, they've updated it. I mean, Warframe today looks nothing like Warframe in 2013. So the code is nice. But I'm not sure I want to be that sort of fatalistic. But you kind of have to, like, ask then, it's like, where are we going wrong with this? If you look at where Warframe was at peak popularity, highest amount of average players every day, and sort of the highest peaks as well, typically, it was around 2018, like the summer of 2018. That's where the downturn started to happen progressively over time. So what happened, right? What changed at that point? That was like, I don't know. We've had AoE metas before. We've had nuke metas before. We've had the Tonkor meta. We've had the Atarax maiming strike meta and all of that. And hey, even in 2018, before that, we had the Ember World on Fire meta. I think they changed World on Fire somewhere like February 2018. So the game still continued to, like, climb after that. So it wasn't sort of like the removal of World on Fire that started. No, it wasn't. But I'm still gonna say that the overall power level of the game today, compared to what it was in 2018, is huge. Is huge. There are so many things that we have today that we didn't have back then. Nice, level 2 sister. That's great. Here's one. We didn't have Kuva weapons or Tenet weapons. That wasn't something that existed in the game. There was one weapon in the game at that point that could reach rank 40, that was the Paracesis. But the Paracesis was still somewhat outclassed by Zaws. At that point in the game, Zaws were like the most powerful melee weapons. We didn't have the galvanized mods. We didn't have the primary arcanes and the secondary arcanes. The Catch Moon was the best secondary by far. That was the one everyone used. It was a kit gun as well, so the modular stuff was the most powerful gear in the game. Nowadays, no one uses the Catch Moon anymore. Everyone just uses the Kuva Nukor still, even after all of the nerfs. And nerfed again, and nerfed again, and nerfed again, and it's still the most popular secondary. But yeah, that was a Kuva weapon. We didn't have that back in 2018. We didn't have Necromex in 2018. Hell, we didn't even have Archgun launchers, right? When that was introduced with Fortuna, then that became sort of the meta for playing bounties in Fortuna, that you have people just deploying their arch guns to be able to, like, shoot dropships out of the sky. No one even does that anymore. You know why? Because you can't equip galvanized mods or primary arcanes on arch guns. So now, arch guns are actually weaker than our normal weapons. Our normal weapons are more powerful than arch guns. But Necromex came, and with Necromex came the Voidrig and the Archebex. And the Archebex has damage numbers that are just... What even is this? 200,000 damage. What even is that number? That is such a stupid number when you look at it. Imagine that. You start the game. You have your Mark 1 Bratton. Your unranked... Mark 1 Bratton. What's the total damage? 18. It shoots for 18 damage per bullet. Okay? And then you look at the Archebex. The damage number per shot. 200,000. And then you sort of start to understand the difference between a veteran player and a new player, and like the levels between this stuff, and how that affects the barrier of entry for a new player. What else didn't we have? Well, we technically had them, but Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds was definitely not something everyone had. They were very expensive to buy on the market for Platinum, because you can only get them by farming Acolytes at that point, who only showed up once per year in a yearly event, didn't even show up every year. And then they were like rare drops, so it was very hard to find. A small amount of people had Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds. Now they're just on everything. Everyone has them because they just put them in Deimos bounties. Huge power spike for melee weapons when they just gave everyone Condition Overload, Blood Rush, Weeping Wounds. We didn't have the Focus rework, where now everyone, with a click of a button, has complete defense strip. Everyone has Void Strike, so you can we can one shot Eidolons now. We can one shot Archons. It's nutty. We didn't have the Helmet system where we could just patch up every weakness that every Warframe had. So you had Warframes that had like weaknesses. Equinox was squishy. Not anymore. Not with Gloom. Like whatever weakness a Warframe had, you had to work around it. Not anymore. Take all of these things combined, and if you look at where we're at, power-wise, compared to where we used to be, there was a time, like when I started playing, I'm not gonna say it was like the end-all, be-all, but the ability to play Mott, not Steel Path Mott, because Steel Path didn't exist, just normal Mott, being able to do an hour of normal Mott was considered a benchmark of quality for a build. That was like how you knew that you had a good build. It could do an hour of Mott. Now that's nothing. That's nothing. Now it's do 3 hours of Steel Path whatever. And that's easy, and like everyone can do that. We didn't have shield gating back then. That didn't exist. But you know what did exist? Self-damage. Self-damage was a thing that existed in the game back then. And isn't that crazy? Back when self-damage was in the game, Warframe was a more popular game than it is today. For all of the doom and gloomers who say that like, oh, if you bring back self-damage, people are gonna stop playing. No, more people were playing when self-damage was in the game. Now that we have like these stupid power levels, and we don't have self-damage, we don't have anything, like any drawbacks to any weapons. We have that situation where they had to add damage attenuation, and they had to do like these workarounds to try to create challenging content. They also were forced to do the thing that they said they weren't going to do. They said that they weren't going to balance the game around Steel Path. But now that we have been power crept to hell and back, that's all you can do. Because now, normal star chart content, it doesn't even exist. Like, you've seen me play these Kuvalich missions, right? They're at level 60, level 70, something like that. That's higher than Mott. It's a higher starting level than what used to be the highest starting level for missions in the game. And I'm not even paying attention to what I'm doing. Enemies can't hurt me, and I one-shot everything. Even with like just subpar gear that I'm leveling up because of just the tools that are available to me. And they said that with the game in this state, it's impossible to make challenging content because Warframes are just too strong. And if they make content that would be challenging for a veteran player, then it would be impossible for a non-veteran player. It would be completely inaccessible to them because of the chasm in power. Now, maybe this is something that has to happen in live service games, right? I've seen it happen in Diablo before. I've seen it happen in Hearthstone, a card game that I play a lot, a digital collectible card game, where you want to release a new expansion to that, right? With new cards. Well, how do you get people to play with the new cards? How do you get them to replace old cards in their deck and put in these new cards that you're trying to sell? Well, the only way of doing it is to make the new cards more powerful than the old cards. That's sort of the same thing with a live service game. They release new content. How do you get people to play with the new content and use the new content? Well, it has to be capable of doing things that the old content isn't capable of doing. You have to have a weapon that is an upgrade, because otherwise people aren't going to replace the weapon that they're already using. So now you have a weapon that is an upgrade, but then you need to create new content where you need this new, stronger weapon to be able to clear it. And, you know, this is just a chain, and it just keeps on going and keeps on going, and at the end you're just sitting there with a game that's been power crept to hell and back. And you have this gap between new players and veterans to where it becomes almost impossible to create new content that's going to be accessible to everyone and also challenging to everyone. That's where we're at. But I thought, at least until now, that this new dev team was aware of this. That's what it's been sounding like when I've been hearing them talk in dev streams. It sounds to me, when they're talking about these issues, that they are aware of it. They understand why it is a problem, and they understand that it needs to be solved, even though it's going to probably take a very long time to solve it. And it's going to happen in increments, not overnight, because you can't disrupt too many things at the same time. And I've been thinking, all right, I'll just be patient. They seem to be understanding of it. They seem to be on some sort of path that's positive. But then we had this update. It's a two-part thing. Part that, honestly, the Grendel rework, and I'm going to make a video about that as well, where I feel like they sort of went overboard with this rework and just, hey, let's give Grendel everything. Let's give him armor stripping. Let's give him an ability that just does 10 viral stacks on enemies. Let's give him armor buffs, health buffs, all the buffs. Let's make him be able to cast all of his abilities while in his ball, and let's give the ball armor strip. And it's like it's all over the place to like up the power level. Whereas like now they want people to play Grendel, so what do? They just up the power level. It is absolutely power creeping. And it's weird because Grendel is like he's bottom tier in stuff like Warframe and user rankings, but I've been beating the drum as hard as I can for a long time that Grendel is already like the most underrated Warframe in the game. He was already powerful, and now they just made him kind of nutty, kind of stupid. So yeah, we're gonna see Grendel's power levels go up. A lot of people are gonna start playing Grendel, and then that's gonna mean an overall increase in power for the player base, and then they're gonna have to come up with new content that's gonna be challenging even to the Grendels. And we're just gonna continue down that path, aren't we? That we were on before. That has sort of like just been a downturn for the game. Like that's why I want to stress this. Whereas like the game was more popular before this, before all of this extreme power creep. Back in 2018, where we didn't have even half of the things that we have today, more people enjoy the game, more people played it. Now, here's the thing. Here is the thing. They've said that it's a delay. My biggest worry, is that this is actually them getting cold feet and walking back this idea of actually trying to do some meaningful change in the game. That is my worst case scenario. That's what's happening here. They got cold feet. They're scared of alienating parts of the user base. Maybe they don't think they will be able to make the game popular again. And it's just a matter of like keeping the players that are in the game for as long as they can. And therefore they don't want to rock the boat too hard. That's worst case scenario. In which case it's not coming back. I've been saying for a long time that I'm hoping that self-damage will come back. So I'm hoping that's not the case. Now best case scenario is something that Reb has said a couple of times when it comes to the Duviri paradox. That they're talking about this being one of the most ambitious updates they've ever made. And one thing they've said that I'm really sort of like just fixating on is that Reb has said that this is an attempt to recontextualize a lot of what we know about Warframe. And maybe, just maybe, what we are talking about here is a stat crunch. There's something to the fact that we see these portals back to the past, back to the starters. There's something about this that makes me feel like just maybe there is some plan here for going back and redoing things from scratch. You step through the portal and you enter a different reality where things played out differently, right? That's what eternalism allows for. Maybe it is a way to go back in time, as it were, and tell a different story. That would be crazy. Who knows? Or maybe there's no reading between the lines necessary. When they say that just, oh no, it just turned out to be a bit more complicated than we thought. It's just a delay. We're still gonna do it. Don't worry, everything is fine. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the case, and I'm being worried for nothing, for no reason. But there is also the risk that in fact the ambition for like going in a different path might have slowed down a bit, or they might have rethought things. Maybe that ambition no longer exists. Maybe plans have changed. I hope not. Because like I said, the game was more popular back in 2018, and the game was functioning in a better state in 2018. It wasn't as impossible as it is today to create meaningful challenge. Playing in teams functioned better. The chasm between a veteran player and a new player wasn't as monstrous and insurmountable as it is today. So, here's hoping that this is in fact just a delay and self-damage is still coming back. That is the best case scenario. But if not, if this is in fact them getting cold feet and walking it back, then this is the first time that I am actually legitimately worried about the the state of the game and the direction of the game moving forward into the future. Because that sort of makes me feel that it's just going to continue, right, in this direction. We're just going to get more and more power crept all the time. And the problems that exist today are only going to be further exacerbated. They're not going to be solved. Damn it, self-damage was really a step in the right direction. I was so looking forward to it coming back. So, today was a bit of a doom and gloomy rant compared to a lot of previous videos. And I'm going to try to not have my rants be doomy and gloomy because I don't like being doomy and gloomy. But just today, I feel it's a little bit warranted. So, I'll be back again tomorrow with something more positive. But I try to invite to debate. I try to get people to be thoughtful about these things. And I don't know, not just piss and moan or not just be a mouthpiece for the company either. Just trying to be sensible about things, right? It's all we can be in these trying times. So, with those words, I will say adieu. And I will see you guys again tomorrow for something completely different.